Welcome to The Weekly, a broadcast brought to you by Calvary Bible Church. I'm your host, Jay Ewing. In the booth with me is Thomas Milburn. We're going to have a great session here recording about Revelation. And no matter where you find yourself out today, we have found ourselves between two ferns because it is Christmas at Calvary.
Maybe between two firs trees.
No doubt. You have to go to our YouTube feed to see what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Because our faces were made for radio, and we ended up on YouTube. We've got to get makeup in here. Help this. Where's our makeup? You imagine being on the daily newscasts every morning at 5:30?
I think you have to get there 2 days in advance.
Oh my
which I don't know
gosh.
how that works.
What a crazy life to live that in front of like that camera that early in the morning every day.
I think that's why news bloopers are my favorite thing to watch. When they just like keep reading the teleprompter. And, like all just keeps going. Like, you're not supposed to read that anymore.
Yeah.
Please stop reading. Please stop reading.
Oh man, what a stressful job. I'm glad I don't do that. They make it look good. Though.
They're good.
Yeah,
They're good.
The
They have a lot of talent.
Yeah.
They've been to school for this.
Yeah, totally.
We've done none of that.
I literally had a podcast about dad life in Erie before I did this podcast.
I figured since you did that, you were basically a professional.
You know, I actually knew how to hit record by that time.
We're good to go.
Yeah.
Find a song, hit record, get 2 microphones.
Oh my goodness. You know, we did create this in COVID because I've always wanted to catch the conversation that happens during the weekday between us around the water cooler, around any of the pastors who preached about all the things they've left behind or couldn't pick up on Sunday, because there's so many things always
there is
within the text.
And just like, how do you actually apply some of this stuff?
Right.
You know,
It takes a conversation. It's not like from a stage.
Yeah.
It's like over a cup of coffee. Yeah. I know,
That's
man. That's why I love The Weekly. And so many people have actually started, since I've said, hey, come find me, tell me your...
Yeah.
So many people have hit me up in the last like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and said, hey, I listen.
Really?
So, yeah. One of our good friends, Josh, who cleans his house on Friday, listens on Friday.
Man, shout out to Josh cleaning his house.
He cleans his house on Friday and says, hey, Thanksgiving week, there was no weekly. I forgot to mention that there wasn't going to be one. It's my bad.
Again,
I didn't read the
professional podcast.
Yeah, I did not read the teleprompter. But he cleans on Friday. He says he listens. I'm so thankful for that. So, hey, I've got to. This is going to be. We're going to get to the thing right now. I would say that Sunday's message was one of the most convicting messages for me personally in a very long time.
Here's my problem is I spend like 2 weeks in this thing.
Right.
And I feel all the feelings for 2 weeks.
Oh, man.
You only have to deal with it for like 35 minutes.
Sometimes 40. Especially if you come to the second hour.
I think what's amazing is, we plan these, we kind of just break it out.
Yeah.
These series, months in advance.
Right.
And I'm not really looking at, this week goes with this theme.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of break it out. Say, okay, how many weeks do we need in this chapter?
Right.
And so these chapters land on certain weeks that I didn't necessarily plan for.
Right.
That I really think I would attribute to God's kindness. God is kind to let us bump into certain texts on specific weekends to bring extra conviction.
Oh, man.
So to talk about consumerism after Thanksgiving, Good Friday, Small Business Saturday, in anticipation of Cyber Monday.
Right.
Man, this is how I felt. I felt like, I'm just fattening myself for the day of slaughter.
It was like that. And there's some years I am really good through that week of sales and like very intentional in my spiritual life in that week. This year was not one of those. And I embarrassingly have to say I was on the phone way too much looking at all the deals, comparing prices, comparing things, and then got to Sunday. It was like, oh, Lord.
Oh, no.
I need to repent.
The thing is,
I am unclean.
I know we're going to talk about it, but here's the thing. There are complexities to this, that you live in a world economy, right?
Oh,
and
totally.
I'm going to buy my kids something for Christmas anyway.
Right.
And so if I can get a better deal over this weekend, I'm probably going to do that.
Yeah.
But then there's like the underbelly of this thing of like, wait a minute, did I just spend how many hours sitting next to my spouse while we were both scrolling through deals, and then found things that I didn't need, didn't know I needed?
That was just all about me instead of actually about my family.
I know.
What
sums it up, I think I've mentioned this before. The kids and I were going out to Walmart, and they said, "Hey, can we buy some things?" I said, "What do you need?" They said, "Well, we don't know what they have."
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's funny that they said it out loud, because that's like my life, is I don't know what I need because I don't know what they have. If you could just tell me what you're selling, I might need some of that.
Right. And this is the thing with like, here's, and we'll get to this. We're living the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
In a different kingdom right now. We're aliens and strangers. If you read your New Testament, we're living in tents, friends. And it is so hard. You have to fight daily in this culture to not swim in that stream. Like, you have to literally fight. Yeah. One of my friends, Rick, talks about this all the time. Like, you have to discern and fight every day, because the reality is we're just inundated. Yeah. And if you drift into that stream, you're swimming.
Oh, yeah. I think the other piece of it is, and I didn't do a good job on Sunday highlighting this, and so it's always in the back of my mind, whether it gets articulated well or not, is God's ways are the good ways. And so when he even calls us to fight every day, to wage war against some of these things, to resist the flow of our culture, it's not as though he's the fun killer.
Right.
Okay, let's just play this out. I mean, I've played this out 100 times at Christmas.
Yeah.
You buy everything you want, then you get to Christmas, and I'm super disappointed that it didn't satisfy the way, I was hoping it would.
You have the post-Christmas blues.
You got credit card debt. I spent too much, whatever it is. Right. Like, man, I thought I was going to spend my way into this amazing experience, and then it didn't. And then you think, okay, God's ways are maybe harder, but at the end of the day, they're the good ways.
They are the good ways.
So I get
he
that
never disappoints and always satisfies.
So if you're joining us for the conversation, I think one thing that's helpful is to understand that we really view the book of Revelation as speaking to us today.
Yes, and that's complex because it was speaking to 7 churches 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And somehow, because 1 Peter tells us this, the Holy Spirit is actually speaking to us as well.
Yeah.
And Hebrews tells us that it's living and active.
We're living and active. So I think that's important to say, hey, it has a historical root or foundation. So it speaks about reality that was, but we also believe it's the reality as it is.
Right.
And the ultimate reality as it will be. And so we still take the whole book to apply to us today. And it will ultimately apply to a culminating, unifying future. Perhaps we'll be living at that time, perhaps we won't be. But to reserve the whole thing to, hey, this is going to happen in the future, doesn't apply to you, I think it removes it from the category of that conviction.
Oh, no doubt.
And so because we want to actually let Revelation speak to the world that we're living in today, and to form us of how to live in this world, I think that's not always the posture that people take when they come to the book of Revelation.
Yeah, and I think I've been a Christian for over 20 years now, right?
And you're 21 years old.
Yeah. And this is probably the one thing that haunts me the most is Babylon. Like, as I thought about my faith, tried to live out my faith, tried to navigate the world with my faith, this idea of Babylon has just always been there. Like, what am I doing that's actually supporting Babylon? And what am I doing that's actually living in the kingdom of God?
Yeah.
And this tension that's always there. There's always a tension, and it never gets resolved. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think on Sunday, at its best, is just to wake people up to the fact that the world in which we live in there's an underbelly to it that we don't always recognize. And Revelation is going to call it Babylon. And there's a historical root that we looked at. Like, here's the beginning of Babel, which is the assembly of people against God to make a name for themselves, to use technology for their own protection, their own might, their own strength, their own, whatever, self-interest. And that develops into literally Babylon, in which we see Daniel and his friends live out in Babylon, which, I mean, thank God there's a book in which they have to actually live in Babylon.
But the crazy thing is before that, even in the prophets, God himself says he's going to use Babylon for his good.
Yeah.
For his instrument of justice.
Correct.
And judgment. And you're like, come on, this is crazy. You're using something wicked.
Yeah.
Well, maybe letting it run its course in order for judgment to happen with the people of Israel.
Yeah, I think when you see God's judgment, think of Romans 1 is because you did not glorify me, right? And you're not going to worship me. You're going to worship the creation. You're going to love creation, not me. Then I'm going to give you over to desires, right? And so I think when you think of judgment, he's giving Babylon. He's not restraining Babylon. He's not restraining evil. He's allowing Babylon to do what Babylon wants to do. He's going to allow evil to do what evil wants to do. And that's his judgments. And then what you end up seeing is, oh man, it devours people and devours itself, because that's what evil does. Just looking to destroy everything.
And you read Psalms like, I sat by the water and wept.
Yeah.
You know, like, you're just like, oh my gosh, man. I can't imagine the book of Daniel and being Daniel and his friends.
Oh my gosh. But that's why the example is so good, is we look at the text from 18 where this Babylon we've seen is political, you know, it's religious, and then we see that it has an economy to it. And the underbelly of its economy is built at the exploitation of people.
Are you talking about America and you're just not saying it like that?
I think anyone who wears I don't remember who has said this, but whoever wears the eschatological hat has to wear it. And so there are times in which religious churches, Catholic Church, Protestant Church, has worn this hat of the beast, has worn the hat of the spirit of Antichrist.
Yeah. I mean, you have Nazi Germany.
Totally.
Obviously, is an easy case study, right? But then you have to look at us at times.
Yeah.
Like, I think especially, you know, and here's the thing. Here's where the podcast gets really real and really uncomfortable. It's like nationalism right now in America is real, especially Christian nationalism, right?
Yeah. I think when you try to find your hope in any government, political system, area of power outside of Jesus Christ, you're in danger of worshiping Babylon. Now, do I want to live in a country, in a place that loves Jesus? Absolutely. Do I want to live in a country that has Judeo-Christian morals and principles?
It goes better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so to my ability, do I want to persuade things for that to happen? Absolutely. Is my ultimate concern and care for the state? No, it's not. And so, like, if I'm going to be faulted for something, I've said this before on the podcast, it's not going to be for loving America too little. You know, it's like, I love the country that I'm in. I absolutely do. But my ultimate allegiance is to Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And so America will end. It will at some point. Babylon has come to an end many times. And so we see in Revelation 18, that end comes swiftly. I think it's just like, man, those who, you know, puff themselves up in pride, like we're invincible. Their fall is so dramatic to let everybody know that they're not God.
Yeah. Can I give some book recommendations just at this point to be
nuts,
helpful?
man.
I think Divine Conspiracy by Dallas Willard, which is probably the best book he ever wrote and the least read book he ever wrote. So it's a tough book. It's a big book. But it's I think thinking about kingdom, how to live out the kingdom, Divine Conspiracy. You have to mention Dietrich Bonhoeffer here with Life Together, or The Cost of Discipleship, maybe even better. It's the start of that. I mean, those are real books, right? That really help you navigate what you're doing in the world. You have any other recommendations? You were like, this book sort of helps you understand how to live out the kingdom within the culture we live in.
Yeah.
Live No Lie by John.
Yeah, John Mark Comer, Live No Lies. That's just a good modern book on trying to navigate the world you're in, that we have been lied to on many fronts. Those lies become normalized, and then they become believed and practiced. And so to kind of break free from, oh man, actually, this is not God's truth. But honestly, I would read the first 7 chapters of the book of Daniel.
Dude, I was just going to that or the 3 chapters of Matthew 5, 6, and 7.
Yeah. Just the opposite kingdom. Blessed are these people, poor, thirsty.
Read them in different translations too. Read them in the NIV
or Greek,
ESV, Greek, NLT. Like those are really important to sort of get the conversation in different languages.
All right, so I'm just assuming everyone had already heard this message. If they haven't, they should probably go back and
they
listen
definitely should pause this and go back and listen.
But I think it's important to remember that there was a literal Babylon that was a historical example for us of what has also happened throughout histories. So there was Babylon that Daniel was in. There was Rome that is Babylon of the historical time in which Revelation is written. John would have thought of Rome. His hearers would have thought of Rome. Its fall, similar to Babylon, is like overnight.
Right.
It's just this sudden collapse of the system, and the system is corrupt. It looks so good on the outside. It looks beautiful. It looks strong. It looks powerful. It's affluent. And then what he's seeing in the Revelation is, I'm going to reveal to you the underbelly of this thing. And I'm going to reveal to you how people have built their wealth, their lives, their securities on this as opposed to God. And this thing's coming down.
So even in the book of Daniel, one of the prophecies of Daniel is he tells you of these civilizations, the Syrians, all these, right, of these dreams, these realities of these kingdoms falling as well. And then the reality that just like Revelation, there's one that will never fall, and that is the kingdom of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's what's coming.
That's what's coming.
And so Daniel lives this out, which is how do you live in Babylon and not be part of Babylon? This is the New Testament, how to be in the world but not of it.
And I loved this section this last Sunday. Like I loved how you went back to Daniel and just helped the scriptures reframe my life. You know what I mean?
Because you got to live here, right?
You got to live here. You've got to eat here. You have to be clothed here.
Yeah.
You have to raise a family here. You have to invest for retirement here.
Yeah.
Right?
Because here's what this is what I normally hear from people is I'll say, I'm gonna go ahead and separate myself from maybe this company, or I'm gonna choose not to put some financial investments in this company, or I'm gonna go ahead and suspend this streaming service because they're taking my dollars and they're producing something that I think is so egregious to Christ that I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
And this is more than just like people boycotting Bud Light.
Right.
Okay?
This is
like, no, you're actually producing content that is not God glorifying, and it's antagonistic, and it's wanting to lead me and my family and others astray.
And this is called discernment. You have to have discernment.
So we usually what I'll hear as a rebuttal to that is, well, you're going to boycott everything? And I'm like, well, I'm not boycotting. I don't think. That's not what I'm trying to do.
Right.
What I'm trying to do is separate myself. And they'll say, well, everything is tainted. What are you gonna make your own clothes? And I get what they're saying, because essentially they're saying, hey, it's so exhausting to think of all the things that we're doing and how, you can't really just like create the Christian version of it. And so even if you were to separate yourself completely, it's impossible to do it. It's impossible to actually do it. And so because it's impossible, then we don't do anything.
Right.
So because I can't separate myself completely, I won't separate myself anywhere. And that's not what God's calling us to do.
Nor is this the story of Daniel.
That's exactly right. Is even if you were to, so to speak, say, I'm just going to make my own clothes, I'm going to live on a commune, I'm going to grow my own food, the tools you're using to do that are polluted.
Right.
And so I think in one sense, Revelation 18 is actually more discouraging than you even realize, which is everything is tainted, which is actually why he has to bring an end to it. Like there's no necessarily redeeming entity in which Jesus says, okay, well, that will make it to the eternal kingdom.
Right.
No, he's going to dismantle everything, bring it back down to its foundation, and then rebuild, make all things new. So because all things have been tainted, all things need to be made new.
I will put this caveat. The only thing that's not tainted is the word of God. It lasts forever.
Okay.
So, yes, everything except the word of God has been tainted.
So I think in the consumer sense, what we're called to do is wake up and say, Lord, where do you convict me? Like, how am I called out of this? Like, is it something in my schedule? Is it in my purchasing? Is it where I participate? There has to be some difference as Christians. And so I think that's why the book of Daniel is so fascinating. Is Daniel, he's going to wear Babylonian garb.
Yeah.
He's going to take a Babylonian name.
He sleeps in a Babylonian bed.
Yeah, and he works for the stinking government, right, to make Babylon flourish. And Jeremiah tells us hey, you're going to be in exile, so plant vineyards, build houses, have families. Like, you're going to be in Babylon, seek the welfare of the city that I'm sending you in. For in its welfare, you're going to find your welfare.
And this is not a story that's new to Daniel. Joseph did this in Egypt.
Yeah.
This is a part of his story that God had to use him to take, and he blesses Egypt. Mm-hmm. Egypt's the first Babylon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think you have, one of the chapters that this is a hyperlink to from Revelation 18 is Jeremiah 51. So remember, Jeremiah is the one that's prophesying with many of these things to Daniel.
Yeah.
And speaking about Babylon. And he says, flee from the midst of Babylon. Let everyone save his life. Be not cut off in her punishment. For this is the time of the Lord's vengeance, the repayment he is rendering her. And so this has happened before, is separate yourself. He's calling you out to not be part of the whole Babylonian system, the way of life, the way in which you make a name for yourself, find wealth, security, comfort, luxury, power, identity in this system, because he's bringing that to an end. And so in Jeremiah 51, he calls out the people several times, come out of Babylon, come out of Babylon. And here in Revelation 18, he's saying, hey, this Babylonian beast that we've seen as a harlot woman, you need to come out of her. Mm-hmm. Now, here's a piece that we didn't talk about on Sunday, is to kind of sew another thread together.
I love this.
Is Revelation 12, right? So we get dragon.
Which, do you have a dragon in your nativity?
Yeah, so many people are like, I'm putting a dragon in my nativity. I'm like,
I got a picture of a friend who put one in.
I love it because it helps remind you of the story, right? Just remember, our Catholic friends literally believe that the woman of Revelation 12 is Mary.
Right.
We're not saying that.
Right.
We're saying the woman is, the believing community is Israel, bringing forth the culmination of God's promised Messiah.
Right.
And at the antithesis of that is obviously Mary bringing forth Jesus. So the dragon's consuming the woman Israel to bring forth Messiah. But after that, the dragon goes to make war, because he couldn't stop that. It makes war on the offspring of this woman. And it says those who follow the ways of Jesus Christ, who practice the ways of Jesus Christ, who are obedient to Jesus Christ. So it's believers, right?
Right.
Jew, Gentile, it's those who follow Jesus Christ. And so Revelation 12 ends with him kind of standing on the seashore and says he's making war on God's people.
Right.
And then he calls forth a beast from the sea, this abyss, like the place of evil. And then there's another beast from the land. And these beasts make war on God's people. And then there's this harlot that we saw in Revelation 17. And the beasts let this harlot ride them. So like these beasts that are animated by the dragon, and there's a lot of color here.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of questions here.
Put Babylon on their back.
Right.
With her constitution of Babel and the economy that exploits people and lets her ride, right?
Right.
So you got to tie this whole thing together and say, okay, how does the dragon make war on God's people? One of the ways he does that is by looking beautiful, luxurious, wealthy, accomplished, successful.
I know some of those people. They're in my news feeds.
And it's like, oh, you're giving a vision for my life.
Right.
And so even in Revelation 17, remember, John sees the woman, the harlot, Babylon, and he says he marveled. And then I thought the angel, I really do think the angel's like, slap, like, John, man, wake up. He's like, whoa, that's beautiful. Yeah. That's like everything that we would view as successful. And he's like, let me just show you her end. Like, where does this thing lead? I'm going to show you what people aren't thinking about when they think about overconsumption of luxury, of finding their trust, their identity, their securities in this. And so he's showing the belly of that and the end of it to kind of wake John up. And that's what Revelation is. Hey, wake up. The dragon is using these things in its beauty, in its appearance, in its false promises to woo you away from Jesus Christ.
That is what Instagram is doing.
I don't know. But so like,
it is.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, right?
It's good. I think
Like that's what it.
Yeah.
That's what it's doing. It's showing you beautiful things so you can buy things.
Yeah. In so many ways, I want that experience.
Right.
So what's the dragon's ultimate goal? Is to draw you away from faithfully following Jesus Christ. Now, he can do that with persecution. We see that. Like, these beasts are drunk on the blood of the saints. We see that around the world with our brothers and sisters.
Right.
But that's not the play often in America.
Right.
So what's the play in America?
The playbook is this.
So if the ultimate goal is, I just need you to get off of your attention with Jesus Christ and for you to be consumed by something else. Well, then I'll just give you this thing that looks so good, so beautiful. Then you'll stop caring as much. You'll be more comfortable. Now, another thread to sew in here is if you take the 7 churches and keep placing them in Revelation 4 through 21, or I guess 20, what you're seeing is the life that they're living and a call for them to stop compromising their faith. And so one of the churches that we talked about, I think that really shows up again here in Revelation 18 is Laodicea, is that lukewarm church that thinks they're rich.
Yeah.
Remember Jesus' critique of them is, you think you're rich. You don't know you're impoverished.
Yeah.
Buy from me true wealth.
Oh my gosh.
And so here it is like, okay, Revelation 18, hey, you're seduced by this economy. You're so seduced by this system in this way. And so you've stopped following Jesus. You think you're rich.
Right.
Man, you are destitute. Buy from me.
That's why I was sitting there on Sunday. I'm like, oh, Lord, have mercy.
Yeah.
Lord, have mercy.
And here's the thing. This is why I love the Bible, is they're always trying to tell us the underbelly.
Yes.
So the Proverbs 7, is talking, this wise sage is talking to his kids of like how to preserve your life.
Read a Proverbs a day and keep the doctor away. That's what my dad says.
So he's talking about this persuasive harlot that seduces men, right? So we could think about this in very vivid terms of how men are seduced by
easily
beautiful, seductive, pornographic images, right? So in verse 21 of 7, with persuasive words, she led him astray. She seduced him with her smooth talk. It just sounds like Revelation 17:18. All at once he followed her. And then this is the description. So I'm going to show you what's really happening. So you're following these lustful thoughts. At once he followed her, like an ox going to the slaughter, like a deer stepping into a noose, till an arrow pierces his liver, like a bird darting into a snare, little knowing it will cost him his life. He's saying, okay, the end result here, he doesn't know that he's like an ox going to the slaughterhouse. And at the result of that, it's just dead men's bones.
Right. Or is it like Jesus at the end of the Sermon on the Mount saying, be a wise builder, either shifting sand or a rock?
Totally.
Like, here's the underbelly of all this, right?
This is why God's ways are the good ways, is that he's not the fun killer. He's not the one saying, hey, stop buying because we know that those things are, things you really want, but, you need to not have them. He's saying, these things are luring you in that will actually destroy your life, that will actually leave you empty. And so come to me, who will satisfy your life.
Right.
So it goes again back to what does the adversary do? Kill, steal, destroy. What does the dragon do? Kill, steal, destroy. He'll do that by any means.
Right.
And so if he can get your attention with overconsumption, luxury, wealth, comforts, so that you separate yourself from Jesus, win. That's in the win column.
Totally, for him.
If he can do that with persecution, that's in the win column.
Right.
So we've seen Revelation address churches that are going through persecution, remain faithful. Some will be in prison, some will be put to death, remain faithful.
And we saw some of the things they receive crown of life later on in the book of Revelation, if they remain faithful. So this one is specifically about remain faithful
in Babylon.
Be faithful with luxury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The church historically has talked about martyrdom. That martyr means witness. So there are red martyrs and white martyrs. Red martyrs are those who died for their faith. So there are examples in Revelation, those who were put to death for their faith. And I think we as American Christians are like, man, we would do that, right? If someone's like, disbelieve in Jesus, or, we take your life, you're like, I'm not going to disbelieve Jesus. But then there's a category called white martyrs, and those who have to live out their faith. Is their martyrdom is living out their faith daily. So you're dying to yourself daily in the sense of, these are my desires, they're pleasures that are wanting to satisfy them in Babylon. I'm going to die to that and live to Christ.
Okay, so let's apply more of this.
Yeah.
And you had the call, and you had these 3 questions, I think, that were really important. Are there things in your life that you abstain from, that just you abstain from? Like things in the culture that not maybe everyone in your life group, maybe not everyone in this church, maybe not everyone in your family abstains from, but you do. Sort of like Daniel refusing the king's food at his table to live a Jewish diet.
Yeah, I mean, there are things on the king's table that he said, I will not ingest into my body, because if I did, it would defile me.
Because that was a Jewish law.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a little, I mean, this would be another conversation, but not everything that he abstained from was antithetical to a Jewish kosher diet.
No.
So they could have wine, but he abstained from the wine. So there's probably more going on in the refusal to consume those things. It's probably more of an allegiance to the king, or identifying with the people who are serving the king.
Or there was a ritual that was to a pagan god, because after you had this.
Yeah, something there.
Yeah.
Now it could have been pork, perhaps,
Good.
and he's going to abstain from that, obviously. But not everything that seemed to be refused was against a kosher diet.
Right.
But
and he eats his fruits and vegetables and looks better.
So I think that even makes it more challenging, is not everything is necessarily anti-Christ.
Yeah.
But you choose not to participate in it because for you it's defiling.
And that comes back to wisdom and discernment. Yeah. Once again.
So let me just throw out some examples on this. Like some people said, hey, there's certain shows I don't watch that even some of my Christian brothers and sisters are like, hey, I love this show.
Right.
But you say, the themes in that show, the amount of nudity or the degree of nudity is pornographic to me. I'm not going to do that.
Totally.
The rating of that, like, why do I want to fill my mind with these things?
Right.
That's
some
people say alcohol too.
Or
like,
even with the show, like if it makes you stay up way past your bedtime and then you're getting less sleep.
What time's your bedtime?
Like you don't get to pray as well the next day because you're watching a show late at night. Like those are things too, right?
Oh, I remember there was a pastor several years ago that I was listening to, and he said, I'm in a fight with my wife. And I'm like, why are we fighting? This is so stupid. He probably didn't use the word stupid. He was a real pastor.
You're just calling it as it is. It's stupid.
It's like, that's how I view it. Like, why am I in this fight right now, fighting about something that's like not that significant?
When I say stupid in front of my kids, I catch their attention.
Yeah.
And I only use it when I'm like, this is really this. Yeah. The word is stupid here.
They're stupid. He said, I didn't realize I didn't go to bed like, was it 2 nights ago or 3 nights ago? He just stayed up and he was binging a bunch of shows or a series or whatever. And he's like, I'm too tired not to fight. And so I lost this conflict with my spouse, not because, I said something right now, is because I refused to just go to bed 2 nights ago.
Yeah, totally.
He's like, oh, dang. Yeah, I should probably have just gone to sleep.
Yeah. When people come in, and part of my calling at Calvary is people come in and ask about spiritual life things because that's where I reside.
Yeah.
Spiritual formation. And they're like, I can't pray. I can't do these things. The first question I usually ask is, are you sleeping? Are you going to bed on time?
Yeah.
Are you waking up at a normal time? And then if you're not doing that, let's do that for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then let's come back and talk about prayer.
So this is
because this is the things you have to think about.
Exactly. That's why on Sunday, I don't want to be prescriptive in, okay, these are the 3 things to come out of Babylon. I want to say, I don't know what that means for your life. I just know that's your call on your life.
And this is why you're a better preacher, because it's easier as a preacher just to call out things instead of letting people reside in discernment.
Let's all boycott this one thing.
Right.
Like, this thing's Christian, that thing's not Christian.
It'll make the Instagram reel, but it is not true.
So it's like, I want you to take a question home. I'm going to lend you a question this week.
Oh my gosh.
What is it that God's calling me out of that maybe my neighbor's not going to be called out of, that even my Christian brother may not be called out of, but I'm called out of this.
And this is why you have to have a life group or a Bible study or a friend or a spiritual partner in life who you can ask these questions to and talk about for the next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my framework on this is my neighbors love Christmas, and not all of them love Jesus. Some of them are very antagonistic towards Jesus. I can't have the same Christmas that they're going to have, right?
And I typically do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is it that I'm doing in this month, particularly, because I think it is a consumer month, that separates myself?
Yeah.
In what ways will I best prepare my children to anticipate the arrival of Jesus Christ? Will I spend more time in the Advent readings and prayers than I will about wrapping and shopping and, because all those things need to get done. I get it. All those things need to get done.
And you have family and expectations on you.
Yeah, work parties going to. I mean, this December's crazy. So I think this is why I think it was just God's gift to say, hey, before Calvary, you step into December, remember he's called you out of Babylon. Mm-hmm. So that was you don't ingest everything from the king's table.
The second one, and I may not have it right because I was writing quickly, refuse to worship things of this world.
Yeah.
You abstain from worshiping some things of this world.
So that goes with Daniel's friends, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, are called to bow down and worship this idol, which I think is just hilarious because in Revelation we see all these images and idols, and worship is not a religious activity. We've said this 1,000 times. It's a human activity.
It's so human.
Finding something worthy of your time, attention, devotion. You worship stuff. And he says, all right, worship this state image.
Yeah.
And like, we can't do that. We can only worship God. So where is it that I have really paid allegiance to and worshipped in my world?
And sometimes that's not monetary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it is. Sometimes it's, do you worship the office? Do you worship your email?
Your title that you're going for?
Yeah. Do you bow down in this season to answering email at 11:30 at night on a Tuesday? Or, you know what I mean? Like, those are things that we have to discern in our own lives.
I met a guy who said I had to give up sports because after my team lost, I would scream and yell at them on the TV.
Yeah.
And then I would be in a bad mood with my family for at least a day, if not two.
Yeah.
He said, this had just found a place in my heart that wasn't appropriate.
Yeah.
That's conviction.
It is super convicting.
That's not my world.
Right.
But that's his world.
Right. Totally.
My team loses all the time.
But it's right. And here's the thing. It takes prayer, reading your scriptures, a community to understand, what do you worship?
Yeah.
What are you worshiping? I love that you shared it with me. Maybe it came from your life group guys, of the football things, the 10 things about church, why you don't go to church. I love that.
That came from Glenn. If you're listening, man.
Glenn always is a good Nicole.
the goods. Yeah, but 10 things why I choose not to take my kids to sporting events.
Yeah. What's the first one? You remember them? They were so
have to
good.
Look them up.
We have to read those someday.
Yeah.
They were really good. It's the reason I don't take my kids to sporting events.
I don't know the songs.
I don't know the songs.
The people I sat next to were rude.
I have to get up early and waste my Sunday morning going to Saturday going to the sporting event.
I remember, some of those were hilarious. There were calls that I didn't agree with. It went into overtime, and I was late to my next appointment.
Yeah, so good.
Anyway, and a third one.
Yeah, have you stopped practicing our faith? I'm sorry, I'm slaughtering this. Maybe I didn't get it right when I wrote it down. What's the third one?
Oh, the third one.
How are you? Or
Daniel.
Have you
refused to stop practicing his faith?
Being when he was praying five times a day, right?
Three times
a day.
Yeah, 3 times a day. They made it illegal. This was a scam.
Yeah,
to get him. Not scam, but a ploy to get him arrested.
It happens several times in the Bible like this.
And he said, no, so you just see, hey, here's my allegiance. It's not to the king's table. I'm not going to ingest that. I'll wear the garb. I'll take the new name. I'll work for the government. I can't ingest this in my body.
Right.
Or think about us. I can't ingest that in my mind. Then the friends. Hey, I can't pay ultimate allegiance here.
Yeah.
It's to God. I don't worship this state. I worship the Lord Jesus Christ, even if it costs me my life.
Right.
And then lastly, I can't stop practicing my faith. I can't stop praying. I can't stop doing the thing that actually gives me my security, my trust, my identity,
right? Which
is my allegiance to God. That will cost you your life. It may, but I'm not giving it up.
And I think you have to frame it in the last part of this book where you did in chapter 19, where we weep or rejoice. And we weep because there's several people who weep at the fall of Babylon: the king, the merchants, the tradesmen.
Yeah.
And the rejoicing is the saints, the apostles, and the prophets. It's all dependent upon the end.
Yeah. Which kingdom do you belong to? That's what it is. Mm-hmm. If you belong to the kingdom of Christ, then you rejoice. For this is bringing to an end the kingdom of evil that has exploited people and has exploited even you. Or this was my ultimate identity security, and I belong to it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm crushed that it's over. Yeah. For the life that I know is over. Or life as I know it is over.
Okay. So here's how we're going to help you, Calvary. This season, this Sunday starts Advent. It's actually the beginning of the year for the church.
Yeah.
It's actually not January. It's not a Roman calendar. It's a church calendar, which is super interesting to say out loud anyways. Mm-hmm. But we're starting Advent. We have developed, once again, an Advent reading plan that the comms team has rushed because Jay Ewing is always slow to the table. Go comms.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark, and Sam, and all those wonderful people over there. Yeah. And we've also developed a morning prayer, which we're going to hit record on those this week. And you can pray along with Calvary every morning for 31 days.
Yeah.
No, 30. 31 in December.
31 in December.
And so those are just formational things, not to make you religious or to make you an expert of who or legalistic, but they are to help reform your Christmas season to the advent of Jesus Christ, which means the arrival. And I think this is perfect this year. I hope we say this a lot in December. We are thankful for the first advent of Jesus Christ. And in Revelation, we're looking at the second advent.
Yeah.
And there's no better book in the Bible for Christmas to look at the second advent than Revelation. And so we have morning prayers that will be loaded every day for you to pray along with us. Maybe you've never done something like this. It's daunting at first. It's a little weird, but we're going to do our Advent reading every day. We're going to read a psalm every day. And hopefully it will help you, and more importantly, the reason why I'm doing it, it's going to help Jay Ewing reframe his Christmas. And I want you to help me stay faithful in that.
Yeah. I like that posture. These are things that are helpful for us.
Yeah.
These are things that I know I need.
Yeah.
And this is an invitation for anyone who would like to participate with us.
Yeah. And we have midweek Advent devotionals coming out as well. If you want to be a person who wants to pray, get better at praying, this fall we sent out, you did some great prayer videos for the fall. Relook at those as you're at the Christmas season. I think asking some of these questions that chapter 18 really asks us is about, are we paying allegiance to? What are we paying allegiance to? What are we devoting our time to? What are we abstaining from? Those are really important questions as we think about Christmas and the beginning of the Christmas season and the new year for the life of the church happening this Sunday at Calvary. Anything else?
Last thing I'll probably conclude with is my daughter's told me about a new Taylor Swift song. It's actually an old Taylor Swift song.
Yeah.
Called Christmas Must Be Something More.
Yeah.
Interesting, right? Yeah. I think that was released in like 2007. Maybe how times have changed.
How times have changed. All right. We love you, Calvary. We look forward to seeing you. We look forward to praying with you, and pay attention to all the things that are happening at Calvary. And in your neck of the woods, go to calvarybible.com, click your campus, click all the events, stay connected, be connected, and more importantly, enjoy your Christmas as it's centered upon Christ, the real reason for the season. All right, let's get out of here.